them. We don't have an alternative. Success, we have to have it every day. We cannot have failures. And in order to do that, we're going to have some hard conversations with Congress, and we're going to achieve that.
My sources tonight are on the other end of those conversations. Congressman Jim Himes is the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, and Congressman Jared Moskowitz is a member of the Congressional Task Force investigating the assassination attempts, now plural, on Donald Trump. Great to have you both here. You know, we even heard from President Biden on this today, who said, you know, what's going on is not sustainable. He said the Secret Service needs more help, and I think Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more service people. Are we going to see a congressional response to this?
I think we will. I think that Jared's committee is going to do some good work and really get to the bottom of what happened the first time. You know, the first time the attempt on the ex-president's life in Pennsylvania was obviously an egregious failure operationally. The question of whether more resources are needed, I mean, I heard the same quote you did from the acting director. You know, obviously the mission is so critical that if more resources are the answer to the question, they're going to get more resources.
Well, and what does that look like? Because, I mean, you kind of have an indication of this since for 2 months, Congress has been investigating what happened the first time. I think it's hard to believe that now you're tasked with dealing with a second assassination attempt. What is the need of the Secret Service when it comes to what we saw happen yesterday?
Yeah, well, look, I appreciate the new director coming forward and saying he needs more resources, right? We had a first assassination attempt. He wasn't jumping up and down for more resources at the time. Now we have a second one, and now all of a sudden we need more resources. Look,
well, to be fair, he wasn't the director at the time. Well, he became acting director because the first one was booted because of what happened.
No, of course, but today he's asking for more resources. He's been the acting director now for several weeks. And so, look, I think if he needs the resources, he will get those resources from Congress. But I also think we have a process and protocol problem, not just a resources and manpower issue. They're saying Donald Trump is getting the highest level of protection. Well, if this is the highest level, we need to see several higher levels that they need to create for a level of protection, because it's inadequate. It's clear. I mean, there's not a single American right now, in my opinion, that has faith in the Secret Service.
Do you have faith in the Secret Service?
Not at this moment. How can you have faith? It's 60 days. We've had 2 assassination attempts. That doesn't mean there's not great men and women working there. It just means at this moment they've had 2 fails in 60 days.
Do we need to change how we classify what detail someone gets? I mean, Trump does not have the same level as President Biden. I was told yesterday it's closer to what Vice President Harris has now to a degree. But does it need to be based not just on your position as a former president or major party nominee, but on the threat level against somebody?
Sure, but you know, threat level matters, but so does the fact the president is in a unique position, right? The president holds nuclear command authority. No one else does. No ex-president does. So, of course, you're going to double down on protection around the one individual in the United States who has nuclear command authority. That said, the notion that there should be risk, you know, there's an awful lot of conversation on my committee around how serious the Iranians are in their stated goal to assassinate a U.S. official. That is not acceptable. So even though there may be different levels of protection, as the Secret Service director just said, you know, failure is never an option.
Well, and just quickly on that, I mean, if Congress does need to move here, can they move before the election? I mean, we've got, you know, 2 months left, 7 weeks left.
Of course they can. I mean, we've got a must-pass piece of legislation that we'll be voting on in the next 2 weeks. I am confident that we're actually not going to shut the government down. Whatever continuing resolution, whatever bill keeps the government open can carry along a rider, which I suspect would have bipartisan support, that we're going to provide the resources that the Secret Service needs.
And, of course, by continuing resolution, what Congress is looking at is only funding the government through December and then revisiting this fight again in just a few months. I want to ask you, you're from Florida. Governor DeSantis has said that essentially he's opening his own investigation into what's happening, not just leaving it up to the FBI and the Secret Service. Is that a move and his reasoning for it we were looking at today was essentially, and we were hearing from others who said they don't trust the feds. That includes Senator Mike Lee, a Republican. Do you agree with DeSantis' move to conduct his own investigation?
Look, I actually don't have a problem if the folks at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement want to conduct their own investigation. I think the folks, obviously, at the Sheriff's Office in Palm Beach are going to be helping with the investigation. So that I don't have a problem with that. You know, obviously, no one should be playing politics with this. I think we want to get answers. Right now, I think the federal government's one of the largest failures in this moment, and it's a failure from the Butler moment as well, is the American people want information. and they haven't still gotten information from Butler. We still don't know the motive of the first shooter.
Yeah.
And so if you look for people on the left think the first assassination attempt was staged. People on the right think it was the deep state. And that's because they're filling the void with misinformation and disinformation because these agencies are not sharing information. I get it that it's protocol as usual. Let's complete the investigation and then we'll share it with the American people. But we have to think outside of the box. These are extraordinary circumstances. We need these agencies weekly to be sharing information with the American public. Otherwise, more of this is going to go on.
Yeah, and you're both Democrats. Given the conversation we were just having of the Trump campaign pulling out anytime a Democrat has said Trump is a threat to democracy as a point of Democrats needing to tone down their rhetoric, I just wonder what your take on that is.
Yeah, I mean, two things about this conversation are really bothersome and actually deeply dangerous. Number one is making that statement. Now, the last thing I want to do is get into a tit for tat here, but the American people know who has advised the police to not be too nice in their apprehension of suspects. They saw what happened on January 6th. It's absurd that the vice presidential candidate and Donald Trump are pointing the fingers at Democrats. And by the way, it's precisely what they shouldn't be doing at a moment when they should be taking down the political temperature. The other thing that has just made me bristle when you said it is, Senator Mike Lee and others who are saying they don't trust the feds. The misinformation and the notion that the federal government, and look, we do oversight of the federal government, so we'll be the first to tell you that there are challenges inside the federal government. But when you constantly beat the drum that you can't trust the FBI, that the intelligence community is in the tank for Democrats or for whoever it may be, what you do is every time you say that, a few more Americans get angry at their own country for no good reason. There is no evidence backing any of this stuff. And if you work hard enough to delegitimize the government in the eyes of Americans, you're going to create a very dangerous environment.
Congressman Jim Himes, Jared Moskowitz, great to have you both here on set tonight. Thank you.